stop using the ideal body weight calculators. And what I mean by that is some of those ones that you can find online, or that one that is referred to as the Ham-Wee equation, which is 100 pounds for the first 5 feet and then 5 pounds for every inch over 5 feet. And it's a little bit different for men. And stop using those. Frankly, stop even using the BMI charts to figure out where your weight should be. None of those take into account your lean mass. Now remember, lean mass is everything in the body that's not fat. And when I say everything that's not fat, I mean quite literally everything. I mean your muscle, your tissue around your organs, the weight of your skeleton, quite literally everything in the body that's not fat. And if those ideal body weight calculators are not factoring in your lean mass, which is essential lean mass, it's not going to be able to tell you where your weight should be. So then, of course, I get the question, well, my doctor says this, isn't it? Yeah, they're using those charts. It's very rare. Now, some doctors do, don't get me wrong, but it's very rare that they're taking into account your weight history and where your weight may naturally be, especially if that weight falls above what they think those calculators and those online charts and whatever say that you should be. So we have to consider your weight history. When you're trying to figure out where your body is at its healthiest, I want you to ask yourself this question. Is there a weight that you have maintained for a significant period of time without a lot of effort? And what I mean by that is you weren't like counting every calorie that you ate, you weren't restricting to 1,200 calories, you weren't exercising 3 hours a day, you weren't cutting out all sugar or something like that. You were, for the most part, just eating and maybe doing some movement, right? But it was nothing that was obsessive. Do you have a time when your body just kind of stayed? So I'll give you an example. I had a client who was about 200 pounds and was being told that her goal weight should be 140 to 145. And so she thought that's her goal weight and she's striving to get to this. But the weight that she had kind of, we'll say, easily maintained was actually 170, right? So kind of right in the middle of that range. And she maintained about 170 pounds for 2 or 3 years. And she did so with, we'll say, little to no effort. She was eating well, she was exercising, but she wasn't obsessing over anything. So what we had to talk about is how 170 is probably a more realistic goal for this person than trying to get down to 140 through arguably disordered behaviors just because that's what some online chart told her. Now, it just so happens that for this person had a really high lean mass, and that makes a lot of sense. So I want you to ask yourself that question. Now, if you're someone who's like, well, actually, no, I've never had a stable weight, my weight has always bounced, then we need to work on figuring out what your stable weight is. I highly recommend you work with a dietitian for this. This is what I work on with a lot of my clients, is figuring out where is that healthy weight for you. We're gonna do so by focusing on healthy behaviors. And what I mean by that is focusing on eating well, doing movement that you love, paying attention to non-scale victories, things like if your energy is sustained, if you're craving carbs and sweets, which you shouldn't be, because if you are, that means you're not eating enough. If you're feeling bloated, just in general, how your hunger is, how your fullness is, we're gonna pay attention to all of those things in addition to healthy behaviors, and maybe tweak and change food and do that together to figure out where your stable weight is. It's really important that we figure that out, because I think a big issue right now is that people are using these online calculators or something that's frankly pretty arbitrary, and they're forcing themselves to try to get to this weight. Inevitably, they don't get to that weight because their body's not designed to be there, and then that trickles into these disordered behaviors, right? Using the example that I was just using, we'll have someone who is at 200 pounds, maybe they get down to 160, but they can't get down to that 145, and so then what do they start to do? They start to restrict and over-exercise, etc., etc. So I highly recommend you see a dietitian if you're someone who doesn't know where your natural weight is. If you are someone who knows where it is, trust that that's where your body is going to be, and stop forcing yourself to get to a lower weight through disordered behaviors. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.